The tool that I would like to highlight now is not necessarily a new one. It has been around for a little while, but it has been updating its services recently, and it is definitely worth noting. It is applicable in both a learning environment as well as any environment where you want to have a discussion component where people can post, kind of like a parking lot feature, which is I guess, a term that we use in education for learners to be able to have a side conversation or continue a conversation either during instruction or after instruction. And that is TodaysMeet. Of note, it is important to mention that there is both a paid as well as a free version. The free version has probably all the tools that an educator would need. However, the paid version is more geared towards educators. It does have the ability to, well, here, I'll show you right here. So TodaysMeet teacher tools. The main difference is there is a monthly or a yearly subscription fee. And basically what you get is infinite access to the transcripts that have ever been done. That way, if something, if a good comment was made and you want to highlight that later on in the class, you'd have a transcript of it. Or if there was the need for a disciplinary action, there's a transcript of what may have been said. You also have the ability to pause conversations. You have a My School access control. You can password protect a room, and there you can easily mute students that may not be using the tool properly. And you can also add topics or prompts. And so, although these are pro features, they are not included with the free one. You can still use the foundation principles of the TodaysMeet platform. So basically, when you first log in, it'll bring you to your main page and it'll show you any rooms that you've created or opened. I don't have any open right now, so I'll demonstrate how to do that. First, you pick a name for your room. So I can call this, if I were to call it something like test room, you'll notice that the name is not available, most likely because somewhere on planet Earth, somebody is probably trying to do a tutorial or using that name already. So it is important that you pick a name for your room that is easily identifiable. You don't want to have any spaces in your room name, and the main reason why they do that is because what they're going to do is just append this to the URL for the TodaysMeet site. And basically that room is a standalone website. So Moser Tech works. You can choose for how long you want the room to be open. Just an hour, maybe just for the next class? Or do you want to keep it open for an entire year so that it is a consistent forum for your students to either ask questions, post ideas, or have maybe like an online tutorial when you're out of school? You choose. We'll go ahead and say it'll be open for a year. You're going to select who can join. This is where I want to note, if you leave it open to anyone, that is literally anyone on planet Earth. If they have a link to your room, obviously very easy to get there. Or if you have somebody who's just kind of being silly and is trying to find a TodaysMeet room by changing the URL, it is possible that somebody could just stumble upon your room. And so you probably want to pick a room name that is very unique, kind of like a password where it might have both alpha and numeric characters. And then if you select logged in users, you are basically saying that your students have to have an account in order to be able to access the room. I would recommend not using this only because it is one more obstacle for your students getting into the room to join, but it really is up to you. You'll notice that if you try to add a password, it's going to prompt you that this is a teacher tools feature and that you have to subscribe for that. So I'm going to say anyone and then open your room. When you do this, you can add your nickname. You can basically, you're limited to about 140 characters of what you're allowed to post at any given time. So basically, that's what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'll put a nickname. And once everybody has joined, they can post. And then you will see who posted it. In your classroom, you probably want to ask students to use maybe their student ID numbers so that they can maybe be anonymous to each other, but the teacher knows who's making the comment. Or you set the expectation that they use their first name and last initial so that you can monitor how people are participating. It's really up to you. There is a 140 character limit, and you can see the ongoing conversation. You do have, again, the room tools. You can embed a room to a website. You can, I think that if we try to click on save transcript, there it is. One thing to keep in mind is even though you don't have access to the transcript ad infinitum, you can print the transcript and save it to your computer or My Documents or Google Drive. That way you still do have the transcript from that room. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the room. There are two other things I wanted to highlight about today's meet. First off, they do have a frequently asked questions section, which I like to show teachers when I'm working with them on technology, just to help them be motivated self-learners. But they do go through everything that is necessary. Of particular note, the main question that I get with this is, how do students join a room? And so they do have very simple instructions. One way that you can do this is you can generate your own URL by putting todaysmeet.com / and then the name of your room. And then share that link with your students via, whatever learning management system you use. So Schoology or Google Classroom, you can email it to them. You could also create a QR code out of that URL to help point your students to the right direction. So one thing that is I also looked for, because I wanted to see if there was more creative ways of using today's meet, and I stumbled across this website. It's called ditchthattextbook.com, and this gentleman posted 20 ideas to use today's meet for that go beyond just we're having a class discussion. So sharing links, asking questions, you can take a poll, you can make it both anonymous or public. You can also create a rotating stories, which is a great strategy for building literacy and creative writing. You can hold online office hours. So you can say, this is going to be my tutorial time. If you're having trouble with something in class, I'll make myself available on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. Just join that classroom and we'll have a tutorial conversation. So there are some other more creative ways of using the today's meet aside from just an in-class discussion. What most teachers use this for is while they are presenting information or while students are presenting information, there can be a back conversation happening to help clarify. If you don't use student identifying information like their name or their ID number, this is a great way for students who are maybe a little bit more apprehensive about sharing out loud in class to express ideas or to ask a question without feeling like they're going to be embarrassed. So it does give a voice to those who might not always use their voice, and it also has some creative alternatives to using it. So some of the standards that I think that today's meet as a tool will fulfill is standard 3A. It will give both teachers and students an opportunity to make positive and socially responsible contributions. I think it's also important that when students use the tool perhaps inappropriately, that rather than coming down hard on students, the teacher can use that as a learning opportunity to discuss proper online behavior, moral and ethical behavior online, and maintaining that positive online presence. And then also standard 6B, which has come up frequently in the tutorials that I've used this for this assignment, and that's you have a learning strategy here, and you create a virtual environment where students have a voice, where they can ask each other questions, they are collaborating with their peers, and really building that community. So a great resource, very easy to use. It's another resource that, again, doesn't have a lot of pomp and circumstance. There's not a lot of frills to its website, but can be a very powerful tool.